Champ Kelly on his way out of Las Vegas, why Aaron Rodgers makes sense for the Raiders, and to tag or not to tag? That is the question we're going to be asking today. Yo, what is up, Raider Nation? It's your boy Moehrig back at it again with yet another video. If this is the very first time you guys are coming across this channel and you love daily Raider content, then hit that subscribe button, hit that notification icon button to notify you guys when I upload more videos just like this. With that said, let's get started with today's news. First things first, according to ESPN, Raiders assistant GM Champ Kelly has left the franchise after 3 seasons. Now, as we all know, Champ Kelly became the Raiders interim GM when Dave Ziegler was relieved from his job. Then the Raiders kept him on just last season, and going into this year, it seems like he's not going to be moving forward with this team. It seems like Tom Brady has different plans for this team. But knowing this new regime and the fact that Mark Davis was going to do anything that Tom Brady wanted to do, this does seem like a surprise to many, but I totally understand the move here. Kelly recently interviewed for the Jaguars GM role, but it seems like he did not make the final list. So right now he's going to be out there doing whatever it is out there, but I wish nothing but the best for Champ Kelly. Thank you for your time over here. It kind of sucks that everything didn't really work out. We all thought that he was going to turn this organization around with Antonio Pierce, but that was far from the truth. At the end of the day, I'm not really worried about this move because I'm already excited about who we have in-house right now. You know, having John Spytek here with Tom Brady, with Mark Davis, with Pete Carroll, with Patrick Graham and Chip Kelly. I think with all the experience that we have here, we should definitely be okay moving forward. Now, moving on though, I want to talk about a quarterback that I've talked about a couple of times before, but I really want to highlight today is Aaron Rodgers. Now, one thing that I said earlier was I feel like Aaron Rodgers does make sense for the Raiders. And according to Vinny B and The Place to Be, he spoke on Aaron Rodgers potentially joining the Raiders, saying it would be interesting because I think in a lot of ways he does fit what the Raiders need. The timing of it is really critical. It can't be anything more than 2 years, right? And you would definitely need to have your replacement in mind, or at least in place. The notion that he's going to come in here and be a diva that breaks the culture, I don't buy into it because there's no real evidence of that happening. Whatever happened with the Jets, I think that was even above, and as much money as he was making, kind of above and beyond his pay scale. To me, you create a foundation by winning, and if he can help, and I believe that he could, help this team win football games for however long he's here, that's establishing a foundation. That's, I think, what Pete Carroll wants to do. There's going to be all the messaging, compete. There's going to be the buy-in. There's going to be how you need to conduct yourself, all of those things. But to set the firmest of foundations, you got to start by having success on the field. I think of all quarterbacks that are out there, he gives them the best chance to do that right off the bat. And honestly, I agree with Vinny B 100%. Now, I wasn't the biggest fan of Aaron Rodgers, and even thinking about bringing him over here, I was kind of opposed to it. Even though I know Aaron Rodgers has a lot of history, he has a lot of experience of being a winning quarterback in the NFL. But when you kind of look at the numbers and you see how much we could be bringing him in here for, you know, the Jets are going to be paying him upwards of $84 million. He's still on their books. So he could sign to another team on a Russell Wilson type of deal that he did with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if the Raiders are able to bring him in for a league minimum, I've talked about this in my last video, I think that would be a huge steal for the Raiders. You put all the drama and all the stuff that you feel like off the field to the side, you look at what we have over here compared to what the Jets have over there. The Raiders have the right foundation here as far as the coaching staff and having management in place. Now, if you were to add Aaron Rodgers over here for a really cheap deal, that opens up a lot of different possibilities for the Raiders to spend that money, whether it's re-signing a lot of the players that we have right now on the roster, or it's going out there and bringing in protection, bringing in the right pieces, bringing in, you know, receiving weapons, and even surrounding this team with a solid offensive line to keep Aaron Rodgers upright. And then maybe going in a draft and drafting a solid running back, whether we want to go pay for one or draft a guy like Ashton Jeanty out of the gate and get our running game up to par. That helps the quarterback position a ton. And then you add on to that, bringing in a quarterback that could come in and learn under Aaron Rodgers and sit for a couple of years until it's time to take over. I think this is the perfect situation for the Raiders. I've talked about it with a lot of different people, and I even got to talk to former Raiders wide receiver James Jones on what he feels like the best situation for the Raiders at quarterback would be, and this is what he had to say. Who do you feel like would be the best option for the Raiders?
I'm a free agent. I feel like a Russell Wilson, a Kirk Cousins, a guy in free agency like that, and then draft and let a guy develop underneath him.
So you take that into account and then look at the quarterbacks that we could bring in on a cheap deal, possibly getting Kirk Cousins over here, possibly getting Russell Wilson over here. But adding Aaron Rodgers to that list, I think he's the best option for the Raiders. And I agree with Vinny B, because if you look at the quarterbacks that are out there, you look at what they can do on the field, even at his age, I think he's still right now better than a lot of the quarterbacks that are out there, and definitely better than Aiden O'Connell. I know a lot of Raider fans that would rather take Aiden O'Connell over Aaron Rodgers, and I think that's really, really crazy. I know that Aaron Rodgers wants to win now, and Pete Carroll coming over here, that was one of the main things that he really highlighted in his press conference, is the fact that the Raiders are not looking to rebuild. We are looking to turn this whole thing around and compete from day one. And what better quarterback is there than Aaron Rodgers to come in over here? Like I said before, as long as we can protect them and have a solid running game and have all the right pieces around him, I think the Raiders should be okay. And if we can somewhat replicate the type of defense that we had at the end of the 2023 season, I think the Raiders could definitely compete this year. I know things didn't really work out or pan out for Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams' little reunion over there in New York, but I feel like all the problems that were going on over there was definitely something that he really couldn't control. Last season, Aaron Rodgers had somewhat of a solid year, not really anything great, but for his age and what was going on over there in New York, he threw for 3,897 yards, 28 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. So with all that being said, do I feel like Aaron Rodgers makes a lot of sense for the Raiders? Honestly, I do. If the Raiders can get him on a league minimum, if they could get him for a cheap deal, I think by all means the Raiders should bring him over here to Las Vegas. Honestly, that's been my whole mindset this offseason, is getting somebody that could come over here and be a bridge quarterback. And Aaron Rodgers as a bridge quarterback, you can't go wrong with that. I mean, knock on wood though. But that not only opens up a lot of possibilities for the Raiders in free agency, but it opens up a lot of possibilities for the Raiders in the draft. I mean, the Raiders could still draft the quarterback at number 6 and let him sit, and I'd be fine with that. But if we don't want to get a quarterback in the first round, we could wait a little bit longer and surround this team with the best players available. So with that being said, I'm all for bringing Aaron Rodgers over here. Will it happen? That's yet to be seen. But trust me, if Tom Brady and Pete Carroll and Mark Davis are open to this, I'm sure it'll happen. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the franchise tag. As of today, the franchise tag window has opened, and each team has up to 2 weeks to figure out which player they want a franchise tag or give the transition tag to. Now, looking at some Raider players that could possibly get the tag, I'm only looking at some notable names that's going to be hitting free agency that the Raiders could possibly use the tag on to just keep them on the roster right now. Now, all these numbers that I'm going to be giving you guys are according to Over the Cap. So the first name being safety Tre'von Moehrig. Now we know that Tre'von Moehrig just had one of his best seasons yet, and I feel like his best football is ahead of him. So going into free agency, I think he's going to be a really hot name for a lot of teams out there, and I think it would be really crucial for the Raiders to bring him back. Now, according to Over the Cap, if the Raiders were to franchise tag him, he'd be looking at a 1 year, $19 million plus deal to stay with the Raiders, and that's a lot of money. If they were to place the transition tag on him, he would be making somewhere around $15.5 million, which to me is it's a lot of money for Tre'von Moehrig. And I know that might scare a lot of people to give him the tag, because that's a lot of money, and he currently was making $2 million per year still on that rookie contract. So that type of money is like top three safety type of money. And is he a top 3 safety in the league? I don't think so just yet, but I think he's on his way. Now, another player that's going to be kind of hard to kind of gauge through this whole process is Malcolm Koonce. We know that Malcolm Koonce had a great end of the year in 2023, and I believe last year was going to be a prove-it year for Malcolm Koonce, but he was injured and missed the rest of the season. And knowing that we kept Patrick Graham, I think Malcolm Koonce is another player that could definitely come in and, show what he has. It could be a prove-it year for Malcolm Koonce, but looking at the position and looking at how much he could be making according to the market value, if we were to franchise tag him, he would be making upwards of $25 million. If we hit the transition tag on him, then it'd be around $20 million. And at that price, I think that's way too much money to bring in Malcolm Koonce back to the team. I would love to bring him back, but it would definitely be a prove-it type of year for him. Now, the next player I do want to talk about possibly getting tagged, I feel like it's going to be a controversial one, because recently, I don't know what's going on with a lot of Raider fans. A lot of people are starting to forget that, Robert Spillane was a really important piece to the defense, especially at the linebacker position, a position that we have not really addressed in previous years. And I believe he's been one of the best linebackers that we've had in quite a long time. But looking at the numbers right now, in the last 5 years, he's made $12.3 million in total. That's not a lot of money, but compared to what he would be making off the franchise tag, he'd be getting a 1 year, $27 million deal. If we were to give him the transition tag, it'd be around $22.5 million. So again, that is a lot of money for Robert Spillane. And I know that the work ethic that he has and knowing how great he's been in his defense, I would love to bring him back. Now, the last player I do want to highlight real quick is Nate Hobbs, who has been one of our, solid players since we've drafted him, especially in the slot. Now, his current market value right now, if we were to give him the franchise tag, would be somewhere around $20 million. If we were to place a transition tag on him, it'd be $17 million. Like I said before, the franchise tag is given to players that we feel like might not come back, and we just want to keep them on the roster, because if they're hit with the franchise tag, they have no say in anything, and they have to just accept it. That's why you see a lot of players sitting out until they could get a new contract. Now, my honest opinion, I don't think the Raiders are going to use the franchise tag at all this year. I could possibly be wrong, but looking at the numbers, again, there are some high numbers, and it's definitely a higher price than I feel like the Raiders would give any of them. I know the Raiders are sitting at second with the most cap in the NFL, the second most cap in the NFL, but I don't think that they're going to spend all their money. Now, it's going to take a lot of money to bring a lot of these guys back, but to tag any of these guys, just like last season, they didn't use the franchise tag at all, and I don't think that they'll use it this year, but I could possibly be wrong. And last bit of news, the Raiders have signed wide receiver Kyle Phillips, according to the Raiders. Phillips, a 5th-round pick in 2022, played 4 seasons under new Raiders offense coordinator Chip Kelly at UCLA. So I guess after this signing, the Raiders should be set at the wide receiver position. And with all that being said, Raider Nation, I don't want to waste any more time. What do you guys think about the latest news today? What do you guys think about Aaron Rodgers? What do you guys think about the franchise tag? What players do you feel like the Raiders will tag this offseason? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Until the next one, this is your boy Samoan Raider and your boys, yeah.